Hail to legal warriors. In this video, I'm going to cover something very exciting. Insurance. SR22 insurance. Financial responsibility. What is it? When do you need it? And what are the pitfalls you need to avoid? If you're interested in this area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 20 years, and I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find these useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. Now, as always, I'm just going to jump right into it. SR22 insurance is one way that a driver could meet the requirement to provide financial responsibility when they've done something that triggers that requirement on their license. So financial responsibility is basically triggered when a driver gets in trouble in a certain way while doing a driving activity. And one way you can show financial responsibility is to actually submit a whole bunch of stocks and bonds to the state for them to hold on to. I had one person actually try to do that once, and it was so hard they just gave up. So pretty much I've only ever seen in 25 years of doing this job, people provide financial responsibility by getting something called SR22 insurance. So now I'm going to cover what is SR22 insurance, when is it that we're likely going to need it, and how is it that we get it? And finally, what are some pitfalls to avoid? So let's start with what SR22 insurance is. Think about SR22 insurance as a promise by your insurance company, an obligation they take on, that if you happen to drop your SR22 insurance policy, that they are required to tell Department of Licensing that you dropped your policy. And that puts an extra burden that currently doesn't exist on the insurance company. And that's one reason why an SR22 insurance policy is typically more expensive than just normal insurance. So think about it right now. If you drive around without insurance, nobody knows about it. If an officer stops you, you're going to get a $500+ ticket for not having insurance. But the Department of Licensing won't know about that ahead of time. No one will. If you have a financial responsibility requirement, and therefore you're trying to get this SR22 insurance, your license is going to be suspended, or you're not going to be able to get your license unless Department of Licensing has that proof from the insurance company that you've purchased that SR22 policy from the insurance company. If you happen to quit paying the insurance company, you forget to pay, you drop your policy, now the insurance company tells the Department of Licensing that you dropped your insurance, and now you get the nasty gram from Department of Licensing says, hey, get your insurance back by this date or you're going to be resuspended. So really, it's a normal insurance policy. Limits and things may vary. You can shop around to get different rates and things like that. But I think about it as it's a promise by the insurance company that they have to tell Department of Licensing if you have the policy, and they have to tell them if you drop the policy, and there's consequences if you drop the policy because the financial responsibility law says there's consequences. Now, when is it we might need this, right? When do we need this SR22 insurance policy? Well, think about it. If you suffer a license suspension for some reason besides an unpaid ticket, you're probably going to need SR22 insurance, financial responsibility. The most common way is a DUI case, driving under the influence. If you suffer a suspension on the civil side for blowing 08 or higher or refusing 5 nanograms or more of marijuana or refusing a blood draw, you're going to need SR22 insurance to get your license back, and you're going to need it for 36 months, even if your license suspension is only 90 days. It just triggers the requirement for 36 months. If you get the DUI conviction, it's also going to trigger a suspension, which therefore is going to trigger SR22 insurance. What about reckless driving? If you're convicted of reckless driving in Washington State, that typically carries a 30-day license suspension. That's a suspension not based upon an unpaid ticket. So rule of thumb is you're going to need SR22 insurance for 36 months, even if that license suspension is only for 30 days. If you suffer a suspension for a DUI and you decide you want to get a restricted license, what the public calls an ignition interlock license, you're going to need SR22 insurance as part of the ignition interlock license process. You may also need it if you get a judgment, a suspension when you're driving without insurance. You're typically going to need SR22 insurance to get your license back there. And more serious felony crimes, you will need it as well. Vehicular assault, vehicular homicide, and also a hit-and-run attendant will do a suspension if you're convicted, and you're going to need SR22 insurance. So a lot of situations where you're going to need it, and if you need it for a day, you need it for 36 months is how I think about it. How do you know how long you need it? You can log on to your License Express account, dol.wa.gov, and go through there and type it in, and you can see on your screen how long you need financial responsibility for. And remember, it doesn't say SR22, it says financial responsibility. So if you can figure out all the stocks and bonds stuff, forget about the SR22. But I've never seen someone be able to do that yet. So how do we get it? Well, your insurance company may offer an SR22 policy or they may not. I got trained a long time ago, probably 15 years ago now. The good old Vern Fonk people came in, and they used to have crazy commercials in Washington State. If you're as old as me, you might remember them. But you can go to an insurance broker like them, and they're going to know what places offer SR22, and they're typically going to shop for a driver to see if they can get them the best rates. Basically, once you get the policy, the insurance company are the ones that will typically tell Department of Licensing that you have the policy, and you might want to ask, do they have an electronic connection between themselves and DOL so it can get to them more quickly? Some places may have it, some places may not. Because usually we're waiting for some type of get our license back if we can get this proof. It's one of those steps. So if it takes too long for them to get the notice, you might not be driving legally. Sooner, it might be later because Department of Licensing may need to get that notice. If it's getting mailed to them, it might take longer. So pitfalls about SR22 insurance. Well, sometimes I get asked, well, should I tell my insurance provider that I got this DUI? Well, some places will check for renewing your insurance. Maybe you've had it a long time and you love this place and you don't want to get dropped by them. Well, maybe you don't want to tell them. Again, that's something to ask the broker. So a pitfall is, hey, if you ask your own insurance provider if they provide SR22, then they might look you up early and say, why are you asking? Right? You might get dropped. You might get a higher rate, stuff like that. Another pitfall we see for SR22 is, like I said, you typically need it for 36 months, but sometimes people don't really read the fine print, right? They get the SR22 for the 90-day suspension, for the interlock license, then they think, oh, I can just drop this insurance now because my license is back. Well, if you drop the insurance and you have that requirement for 3 years, you're going to be suspended again because you dropped the insurance. And finally, the biggest pitfall I probably see is people are just too afraid to even go try to find it because they're afraid it's going to be too expensive. And while I've never bought SR22 insurance, I know anecdotally from talking to clients over the last 25 years that more often than not I get people telling me it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So maybe there's more competition out there. Maybe those type of people already had high insurance rates. I don't know. But don't be afraid. It's better to drive within the law than drive without the law because paying for a higher cost insurance is a lot cheaper than paying attorneys and paying fines and going to jail for driving on a suspended license, because if we're driving on a suspended license, that's not a traffic ticket, that's a crime. So SR22 insurance, not as scary as you would think. Think about it. It's just that insurance company doing a little bit extra. It's still an insurance policy. Don't be afraid of it. Follow the law, and hopefully you won't need to call us. But if you do need to call us, you got a criminal matter out there, you need some legal help in Washington State, feel free to give my office a call. Been doing this more than 20 years. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.